Hi, I'm Meta Spencer, and today I get a big treat. I get to talk to, well, to be honest, in the 54 years that I've lived in Canada, this guy was the best foreign minister Canada ever has had. Now, what happened before those 54 years, I can't say, but I'm thrilled always to talk to Lloyd Axworthy because he knows a lot about what's going on in the world. I think you and Allan Rock have teamed up to strongly urge the Europeans to use that Russian money that's mostly in
Uh,
Belgium. And they said nothing doing.
Meta, it's a very disturbing, saddening to realize that the European Union simply caved in to the pressures of the bankers and the pettifoggers and the legal guys, including the fact that you had three European Union countries who were pro-Russian, and you had the United States undermining it because, as you saw last week, and when they talked about their national security strategy, it was very clear that they wanted to reserve those Russian assets for their use so they could start buying up minerals and stuff in Russia. So all these things came together. The European Council was the chancellor in Germany, and von Leiden made the choice that really reparations needs to start being paid right now for the enormous destruction and death that Russia's providing. But there is in Europe, as there are in other places, kind of subterranean controls of the banking system and the financial system that wants to protect its own sort of legacies and its own sort of perks. And, you know, I go back on this issue, as you pointed out, with Allan Rock and Fen Hampson. We went through the World Refugee Council, Migration Council, had really initially to talk about repurposing frozen assets to help refugees. But when the aggression took place in Russia, we immediately said, here is an important use that could give Ukraine the kind of support and stability it needs. And to her credit, Chrystia Freeland, who was the finance minister, actually picked up on the idea. We brought in legislation, a new act enabling Canada to take that step of converting these assets, and she raised it at the G7. So it really was very much. Now the new government under Mr. Carney, because he's a banker, had no interest in it. I mean, he's part of that club, and so when he took over at the G7 meeting, they didn't even mention it. It wasn't on the agenda. So Canada has kind of dropped off the radar on this one. But in the meantime, the European,
because I didn't realize that Canada had anything to do with what happened. Was it yesterday, 2 days ago? It's the European Council, I thought.
well, it was because
Commission or whatever this thing's called. Sorry.
well, we were just because we didn't want to participate. I mean, we have 22 sort of $1 billion of Russian assets in Canada. And as a result, we should have been in as part of that discussion. But I think that Mr. Carney's government doesn't want us to do things that Mr. Trump thinks will make him unhappy. So they just have gone silent on all these very important issues.
So that, in a way, Canada should have been involved, and I didn't even know we were supposed to be or had any reason to be.
Well, it was as I said, it was the initiative of Canada, sort of 2 years ago at the G7, to put this proposal forward to the G7, and we were working very actively. Our council was very much engaged, working with the Europeans on how to put together the right legal system to repurpose these assets. But once the Mr. Carney's government come in, they just dropped the whole thing, and you can understand why. He's part of that
Mm.
kind of inner circle of bankers and stuff like that who who think it's more important to preserve the banking system than to preserve the security of Ukraine.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Well, because now, I mean, they do have an argument, and I don't know how much weight to give it, but I mean, they say that it would be considered, a precedent, and that next time, if one of the European countries was in a situation that other, maybe is considered to have violated international law, that maybe the shoe would be on the other foot, and it wouldn't be so good. That the rule would apply, and they're establishing this legal thing that they don't like. I kind of see that, if but I don't know how true it is.
You can always find that you have enough lawyers to find the language
Yeah.
to make a explanation. But here, medley history is after the Second World War. Germany paid reparations.
Mhm.
In the attack on Kuwait, Iraq paid reparations. We've had 5 or 6 in the Congo reparations. There's a basic international law that an aggressor has to pay for the damage and the violence that they've done. So how do you do it? Well, we had a situation where Russia was still at war. They were, as you know, out to destroy the Ukrainian infrastructure, power systems, and things of that kind. And the opportunity to use Russian assets, government assets, not just personal ones, to start supporting Ukraine in its really quite overwhelmingly difficult effort to stop the Russians. I mean, Putin has no compunction in how many people are killed or murdered, what it's doing to his economy. He's got this crazy notion. But here's something that, in terms of what I think is a compelling argument, and that is in lieu of transferring Russian assets to Ukraine, the European Union has now decided that they're going to make a commitment of a $90 billion loan, but that's going to be based upon the taxpayers of Europe. And what all of a sudden they're going to be saying, we have to carry this additional financial burden. And that just gives more ammunition and more emphasis to the far right parties in the European system to say, oh God, Ukraine is making us go broke. We're having to raise taxes to do these things. So rather than doing a way out where you hold Russia accountable, Russia's off the hook now. It's off the hook.
Putin reacted as if he'd been, gravely insulted and badly damaged by this. And the European, well, I think this Ursula lady said, tried to put the best face on it possible to make it sound as if this is maybe just as good as what they were going to do, and that the Ukrainians would get the help they need. And of course, we'll just pay for it ourselves.
She's called camouflaging. Look, here's one major difference. There was $220 billion of Russian assets that were being held in a place called Euroclear in Belgium. $220 billion. The European Union has said they will now make a contribution of $90 billion. So there's a very
100?
$90 billion.
90.
So there's a very large gap. This is enough to keep Ukraine going. It's not enough to give it the kind of support it needs to continue to push back against Russia. This is what I would call a holding action.
This upbeat conclusion that they tried to spin it, with was not really.
No, it's dissembling, yeah. and I'm what I'm afraid of is that it just points to what I think as Canadians we should be concerned about, and that's the unreliability of the European Union. I mean, we're into this new world where you can't rely on the Americans anymore. The Russians and the Chinese, all the big powers, are flexing their muscle. European Union still held on to notions of law and liberal democracy, but they don't have the political guts or the political mojo to make it work. Mm-hmm. And they allow Hungary and Slovakia and these countries to upset, to put a wedge in the works. And so when we start saying we have to diversify our relationships, Mr. Carney's off to Europe to do it. But Europe, increasingly, in my view, is not a reliable partner.
No, the real question remaining, though, is what is Trump going to do?
Well, I think it's very clear. He's going Russia's way. I mean, he throughout all of this, he refuses to really implement the sanctions effectively. Here's again another total contradiction. He likes to brag about how he's amassed the largest naval armada in the history of the world around Venezuela and is intercepting their oil tankers moving. Russia has the same kind of a sanction against them, and they're the ones who are using these ghost ships. I don't see Mr. Trump placing an armada in the Baltic Ocean or anywhere else to hold the Russians to account. I mean, look at from early on, from his first term, for reasons known only to him, or maybe the people close to him, he is a Russian sycophant. And this whole peace proposal he put out was based on one basic issue: that Ukraine loses and Russia wins. And that's
well, Happy New Year or whatever is coming up, and happy birthday. But honest to God, I can't find much to be happy about. If I look at
agree.
the world.
Yeah, the only thing that I take some comfort from is that what I think we're badly governed in this world. I don't think we have effective leadership anywhere that I can find. In terms of meeting the challenges that are there. I think we're all, in our country, we were kind of turning our government over to the corporations and the business world to make the decisions. I mean, Mr. Carney is step by step, turning us into a neoliberal petro state. And where's the leadership coming? But there is still, in all kinds of places around the world, the kind of effort by ordinary people to go on the street, to protest against corruption, to demand. There's young Americans in the United States trying to stop the Trump's national police force called ICE from deporting people. You've got women in Afghanistan getting in the way of the Taliban. You've got, I look what happened in Australia this weekend with a mass murder. Well, the number of people who showed up and tried to do the protection. I think that there's still a lot of good sense. If there's something to take out of the Christmas story, there are a lot of people with goodwill. But unfortunately, it hasn't translated into good government.
Well, one of the things that I notice is I have a lot of friends who are really focused on nonviolent resistance, and including even the notion of protecting Canada from potential U.S. invasion, however unlikely that may seem, by nonviolent civil defense. Anyway, we get, have conversations about this, but they come in and remind me that there was this enormous demonstration with 1 million people or something. And I read the New York Times every day on my iPad. There was nothing mentioned that they don't cover these movements. And even so, I mean, the New York Times is as progressive and lefty as you're going to get in mainstream America. But why aren't we paying attention to this kind of resistance?
It's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of the the traditional regular media in the United States are now owned by very large corporations who want to make sure that they don't ruffle Mr. Trump's feathers. I think
that's true for Washington Post, but the New York Times shouldn't.
Well, they are not always out there on the edge. I mean, I'll just give you an example. The War Secretary, Mr. Hegseth, announced Friday that the United States was now going to no longer abide by the rules of the landmine treaty, which they had committed to way back when. And he said we can use landmines wherever we want against where we think our security is. It wasn't covered in the New York Times. It was covered in the Washington Post because they broke the story. It wasn't covered in the Globe or the Toronto Star. It wasn't covered on CBC. And yet this is an issue very important to Canadians. I mean, we provide the leisure. But the reason is not because no Canadian official is standing up and saying, we object to this. We're going to make a response to this. I mean, so there's just so much hidden under the carpet. And I think, I increasingly have found that I do my writing oftentimes in Substack. Because I find that Substack, that social media has a lot more informed, responsible reactions. You can have a really dialogue and a debate, and it's also an incredible form of good information. And I'm one of those increasingly rely upon that to find out and to listen to what interesting people have to write about.
Right. Well, you're right, and I'm an enthusiast too about the Substack, because we've shifted over completely and to disseminate all our stuff through Substack. I know that only a few days ago, I believe, you finished your term as the head of the World Refugee and Migration Council. And was that when you started your Substack?
No, I've been doing it for the last 6 months or so.
Have you? Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm only now getting it, but I'm glad to see it. It's wonderful.
Well, I have a birthday edition out today, so you'll have to read it. That's
okay. Wonderful. Okay, I should let you go if you've got family with a chocolate cake. So, but let's speculate a little bit how to save the world. There's so many angles to take, and I think if I put my highest priority on anything, it would be trying to figure out how to get international law enforced.
Well, I think you have to start with the rules and the laws and the treaties and the agreements, and the ones we should be having a much stronger pushback on the efforts to dismantle them. You have here's an example that really bothers me, and that is back how many years ago we had the Paris Agreement on governments committing to deal with probably what is one of the most serious threats and risks to people is the way in which climate is increasingly resulting in extreme weather patterns, drought, floods, freezing, you name it. But all of a sudden, the security issue takes precedent. And now every country, including our own, is backfilling. All kinds of excuses about let's continue to use fossil fuels. And I even saw our prime minister on his end of year stance saying, I don't think rules and regulations work anymore. I want actions. Well, rules and regulations do work. They're there for a reason. It's to hold accountable the organizations that are doing it. And if you're simply allowing a free kind of flow of fossil fuels, and in fact investing money to make sure that more of it's produced and more of it's shipped, we're going to have more forest fires and more droughts and more floods. And so it's a very practical reality, but it's really being covered up by this lack of political will. As you know, I was in politics a long time, close to 30 years as an elected representative. And I can't remember where I've just seen such a lack of what I would call serious democratic procedures, discussion, the opportunity to participate. Parliament's treated simply as a rubber stamp. And you've now got the emergence of these ultra wealthy sort of so-called what do they call them? The digital bros and oligarchies. And so you've got 7 or 8 white men around the world who make more money than their 1% compared to the 50% of the population. But that money is used for political reasons. They buy votes. They influence decisions. they inserted this guy, J.D. Vance, into the Trump government. So these guys are wicked and nasty, and they don't believe in democracy. And I think we're just letting our democratic systems wear away. We're not making and even here in Canada, where we were slowly making progress in the involvement and participation of Indigenous people, well, we're now backfilling on that. It's more important to get a pipeline built than to make sure that there's full participation. So, if you ask the question, I think what has to happen is that increasingly we have to start asking for a better system of democracy than what we have now.
There's a move on at the UN. A number of countries are trying to really start some sort of UN reform.
Yes.
I don't know how far that could go, since the UN is really run by countries and not individuals, unless we get some sort of parliamentary assembly that's run like a citizens' assembly with sortition of human beings making the decisions instead of the governments. It's hard to see how anything can be enacted. But I don't want to end this conversation with such a bleak projection. 2026 is coming up, and I don't have anything cheerful to say.
Well, Meta, as long as there's people like you who still believe in these basic principles and tenets, and then I think it shows that there's still it's alive and well. The point that I think what we have to find is to find a way of kind of introducing the lessons we've learned to young men and women. And I do believe there's, even these elections in the United States of younger men and women who now are prepared to say, we're going to provide, free childcare and open grocery stores and make sure that poverty has come to a point. But I think we have to make sure that we keep the discussion going and not let sort of the kind of business Bay Street corporate crowd think that they can run without any accountability.
Okay, you're my partner. We'll keep after it.
We'll keep it after it.
Good to know. Now, what are you going to do with yourself now that you have all this free time?
Well, I have a very interesting project going on in Manitoba. The premier has asked me to chair a major study on railway relocation, about how we can take the historic railway system in the Winnipeg region and adapt it and modernize it, but also to open up new green spaces, to provide better public transportation. I'm in Winnipeg several times a month. I work from here. I'm on the Zoom. And I'm back where I started out many years ago, working at a community level. And I'm enjoying that.
How long will this project take you?
Oh, it's got we have about another 9 or 10 months to complete it, but we're pretty well, we're launching a series of pilot projects in the city to open up space. And so I do that, and I'm enjoying my writing. I can now write with total freedom. And, I think I have another book in me. I want to, I spent all those years as chair of the World Refugee Migration Council. And by the way, we have a very good replacement, the chair, Annette Kelly, who spent a lot of time working at the UNHCR. But I want to write a book about the whole question of the migration refugee issue from that perspective, of going from a point where we thought we really could make changes to a point now where it's become a third rail.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful birthday. And
I will.
Send me a slice of your chocolate cake, okay?
Oh, well, if there's some way of transferring digitally, I'll do that.
All right. Okay. Bless you, my friend. Okay. Thank you so much.
Take care. Right. Bye-bye.